All right, well, here we are. We finally made it,
Well, we
man.
finally made it.
Finally made it. This has
First
been
pod.
first pod. There's been like 2 months in the making since we ordered all the equipment, put the brainchild together. But this is going to be a recovery-based podcast centered around our sober living home, Solstice Recovery, here in on the west side of Los Angeles, particularly the neighborhood of Culver City, California.
So let's tell them about Solstice a little bit. Speak on the name a little bit, why don't you?
Well, solstice is indicating when the sun is the 2 points of the year in which the sun is the highest in the sky and the sun is the lowest in the sky.
Yes.
And it is the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year.
And I feel like that's very symbolic of recovery,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
This idea of, the night is darkest before the dawn, right? The highest point in the sky, right? There's where we're able to grow to in recovery, coming from our nadir of the lowest point, right? When the sun's the lowest point in the sky.
Yeah.
So there's real symbolism there.
Yeah, and then on top of that, not only is that symbolism goes with it, but the solstice happens on the changing of the seasons from fall into winter, the shortest day of the year, and then from spring into summer. So it's also indicative of that change that we go through in recovery as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Solstice Recovery. So, you obviously have, 4 years experience running another sober living.
Yeah, I mean, the first sober living I started was in Thousand Oaks, California. It's a suburb of Los Angeles. And I got the opportunity for about 4 years ago now to, go into business and in the sober living and give back to the community out there. And it was great. It was fantastic. And I wanted to do the same thing with the community out here on the west side of LA. It's such a vibrant recovery community out here, especially within, the 12-step programs that they have out here. It's the community is so vibrant. So I wanted to bring it out here as well.
Obviously, the sober living, it's a little bit self-explanatory, right? Within just the name, the title of it. But why don't you talk a little bit about what is a sober living? But also more importantly, at what time does somebody come to a sober living? What purpose does it serve in somebody's recovery journey? When is it appropriate?
Yeah, so the name of it is Sober Living is pretty self-explanatory, but I can't tell you how many times people don't understand that what it means to be sober and what it means to live in a sober living. It means you have to be abstinent of all substances, not just your drug of choice. Say if your drug of choice is alcohol, I've seen so many times people try and come in here and just smoke weed. And that's not it either, because you have to be sober of all substances.
So totally abstinent house.
Total abstinent house. Completely
sober,
abstinent house.
Abstinent living. The guys live there.
Yeah, and it's a community. It's a place to live in which, you're provided this drug-free environment and substance-free environment. And usually people transition. It's a transitionary living home. People come in during early recovery, people that are struggling with substance abuse.
Early recovery, so are they coming in off the streets? Or
No, they come in usually, sometimes off the streets. Sometimes they come in off the streets, but a lot of times they come in from a detox or a residential program that they've been to in which they have at least 30 days to 60 days sober. And then once they come into the sober living home, we feel at 30 and 60 days, that's not enough time for people to stay sober or go back into their own community, go back into their own home environment by themselves. So we feel that the recommendation is to come into a sober living home where they can have that extra support while they build that foundation in recovery.
So this place is a bridge. It's a transitional space, right? We serve as a bridge. This house serves as a bridge for the men that are here, helping to transition into transitioning and an opportunity to be in a contained space with other like-minded people that are in recovery. We have structure here, taking them to meetings. Right. We're building community, men's community, but it's about a transitional space to like arm these guys with the tools, the support, the structure, so that they have enough self-assuredness, enough discipline, and enough time and sobriety under their belt that they can then leave this place and go build their life outside of this.
Yeah,
right?
Of course, because nobody wants to be living in a house with 10 other guys for the rest of their life, being drug tested 3 times a day. Drug tested 3 times a week. They want that freedom, but right now, when you come into the sober living home, you come into a community that's going to protect you from you. And you're going to protect yourself from yourself. So that's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of coming into this community in this space. So you can build that foundation and better, and have more confidence when you leave here that you're going to stay sober, because the recidivism rate is so high. I tell people all the time that you want to give yourself 6 months to a year in sober living to really build that solid foundation in recovery, where you aren't gonna, when you leave here, you're not gonna go out and immediately relapse. Because I've seen cats that come in here, they come in for 30 days, 2 months, and they're like, I got this, we're good, I don't need to be in sober living anymore. And then next thing they know, they go back home and they're not working a strong program. They're not getting the support of the house. They haven't worked the steps at all. They don't have a relationship with a sponsor. And then boom, next thing you know, they're, right back at it, right back in after it, using their drug of choice, whatever it is. In a lot of cases, especially today, fentanyl is a huge thing in the drug world, and we're seeing people overdose and die every day, and people don't understand the severity of this disease that plagues them, and you need to get it under control today before you're in the ground, before your friends and family are putting you 6 feet under. And that's not where you want to end up. And I hate spreading the message of fear. I like to lead with love and positivity, but we got to still be cognizant that stuff is out there, and it's taking lives every single day.
Who are we? So we are obviously the co-founders of Solstice Recovery. My name is Brian Meyerhofer. For you folks that don't know, I am an associate marriage family therapist. I'm a men's coach. I've also been in recovery for about 9 years. My partner here,
I'm Eric Bornstein. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been running sober living homes for about 4 years now. I'm also the co-founder of Solstice Recovery, and I've been in recovery for 8 years now through the 12 steps.
Through the 12 steps.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, obviously recovery is a huge part of both of our lives. Mm-hmm. Super informative, and has really, built us up as men throughout our entire 20s. We both you and I spent the majority of our 20s in recovery.
Oh yeah.
And what a unique experience. I feel, because of that like we are in a unique position where we were able to, we're just a little bit farther down the river than some of these other guys, right? Like we don't have all the answers. We don't know what's right. We're in it in the same capacity that they're in it. Mm-hmm. We're just a little bit farther down the river. But as a result of that, we are able to let these guys know, like, hey, there's a big rock right there. Here's a sharp bend in this river, right? Maybe you want to wade the waters this way. We have just a little bit more insight, but it brings to mind just the necessity for community. And, Carl Jung, when he was speaking on alcoholism, he wrote a letter to Bill Wilson in 1969, right before he died. And he identified 3 solutions to alcoholism. And they interplay with one another, and the hope is that all 3 all 3 are present in AA. But one of the things that he talked about was he said that an alcoholic can recover through the loving hands of human community.
Unity,
yeah, right. Yeah. And then he said an alcoholic needs a moral or psychic reorganization. Mm-hmm. which in the big book, right, this is the spiritual experience of the educational variety that they describe, right?
Yeah.
And he said, or the alcoholic can get sober through an act of providence.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What do we think that means?
Act of providence, being of service, perhaps, or providence.
Providence, the divine. Act of providence.
Okay.
Right? Sort of how Bill Wilson was kind of struck sober.
Yeah.
Right? As we talk about in the big book, under his belladonna treatment, he had this white light experience, right?
Yeah.
So an act of providence. And looking at, again, William James wrote that book in 1913, The Variety of Spiritual Experience. And he went and looked at all the different types of spiritual and mystical experience throughout recorded history, right? He's looking at Mother Teresa. He's looking at the Buddha, Gandhi, these big reported cases, but also, dug a little bit deeper. And that is something that is reported, right? These acts of providence, like we hear people in the rooms and stuff, they talk about being struck sober. People do have these white light experiences.
Yeah.
Right? I think normally most cases it's more of the educational variety, this moral and psychic reorganization like Carl Jung talked about, but the loving hands of human community. And I love the way that he frames that.
Yeah.
Right? And so that is ultimately what we are trying to build here.
Yeah.
But it's not just here in the house.
Yeah.
Right? It's through our alumni program. It's through our mentoring program. It's through the lineage of the guys that come through Solstice that are going to meetings, still staying connected. Right? I mean, we have a guy who, just left our house a couple months ago and he's coming back to the house and he's picking these guys up and taking them to meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Being of service, really building the loving hands of human community as a solution to drug and alcohol abuse.
100%. 100%. Because these guys hold the door open for them, They hold the door and they shepherd them into the room and they lead their leaders that these guys have the hope of becoming leaders in their own community. And that is such a huge part of recovery, is being a leader, being of service, showing the newcomer, people who are new in the community, new in recovery, that there is a solution, that here, come this way. Let me hold your hand. Let me shepherd you into the promised land.
That's beautiful imagery.
And it is it sends shivers down my spine. Because people have such a huge life in front of them. If they could just see it, and these drugs and alcohol, they cloud your head. That's why we say stay sober of all substances. If alcohol is your drug of choice, you can't just smoke weed because it's gonna cloud your judgment. It's gonna cloud the vision of where you're going.
And potentially block you off from the sunlight of the spirit too.
100%.
Right?
100%
like
block you
so
off.
much of it is about like the purity of our energy that we move with.
Yeah.
And the more recovery we get, the more we can strip away, these threads of shame and guilt and make our amends and create, resolution in our relationships. We work with cleaner energy.
Yeah.
Right. And we maintain that through this 11-step, maintain this spiritual connection. But the purity of energy that is able to be transmitted in sobriety, I think is so beautiful.
It's so healing. It's so huge, and that's what that's what we talk about having a spiritual awakening. We can't transmit what we haven't got. Right. That's why we need to be able to open ourselves up to this experience completely and unapologetically, opening ourselves up so we can have this experience, so we can have this psychic change that we yearn, because that's the only way we're going to change our life. Sobriety is just the tip of the iceberg, but recovery goes way below the sea, way below the sea.
And you spoke on that, that psychic change, and I want to talk about that a little bit, or like how I relate to the psychic change, or how I experience that, and I know on this pod, we're going to have an opportunity to sort of like walk through the steps and kind of get into the nitty gritty, but just a couple of the elements that have happened for me in my spiritual experience of the educational variety, and really looking at that first step, the big one is just this idea of surrender, right? Like that is a part of this new psychic, this new mental framework that I work with, right? There's like, the surrender of giving up control, recognizing that you need help, recognizing that there may be things bigger than myself that are able to help. And then a big piece of that is a removal of a lens of victimhood, right? Because through like an inventory, and as you work with a sponsor, when you do this inventory, you're able to see how you contribute to your own suffering. So I came in a victim, and I leave empowered. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I also leave with a sense of interconnectedness, that I'm a part of this chain link and standing on the shoulders of giants of those that come before me, starting all the way from Carl Jung and Bill Wilson and Ebby and Dr. Bob, and, you know, having a sponsor and then and then having sponsees, you're in the loving hands of human community. You are a link in the chain of recovery.
Yeah, that's so healing. It's so huge, you know? It's just, you're just a worker among workers. You're just another one of the people in the chain, and you're going to pass it on, just like we had it passed on to us, you know? And it comes in, and that just goes with the great paradox that is AA, which is, or, you know, which is you have to give it away to keep it, you know, which is a huge part of this program.
I think there's a bunch of paradoxes that sort of exist there, right? Like in admitting powerlessness over a substance or sex or gambling or shopping or whatever it may be. With the declaration of powerlessness, there is a reclamation of power. And that feels very contradictory on the surface. How could I be relinquishing a sense of power and simultaneously gaining power at the same time? But paradox is at the heart of so many spiritual truths. And I think as we get deeper and take a look at the steps even further, I think we'll begin to uncover greater paradox. Which, you know, Carl Jung said that wherever lies paradox, there lies God.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's great. Just to get back in that psychic change a little bit, you know, I didn't have what Bill Wilson talks about as that white light spiritual experience or spiritual awakening. Mine was more of the educational variety that Carl Jung talked about, where 2 years, 3 years into my recovery, into my sobriety, I didn't have this white light experience of spiritual awakening that everyone talked about. And I was waiting for it. I kept waiting for it. I prayed on it, meditated, did all this stuff. And it came to me while I was driving. It wasn't a white light experience, but it was just really a recognition of how my life had changed, where I was at before I came into sobriety and got sober and came into recovery, and where my life was at. The lack of relationships I had in addiction. It was just me, myself, and my drug of choice. And then how full my life was when I was in sobriety. You know, I had a job, I had people that trusted me, I had responsibility, my family was back in my life. You know, I had a girlfriend at the time, all this stuff. I was surrounded by love, and my life was so big, and I had all these responsibilities, which were, you know, sometimes stressful, but they made my life so much more, like, they brought me so much more joy into my life than when I had no responsibilities, no friends, no family to love me, no girlfriend. And all I had was my drug of choice, and just to numb out, just completely
isolating.
Incredibly isolating.
Because addiction and alcoholism in so many ways is a disease of disconnection. Right? In so many ways. And I think recovery is about a reconnection to self and into our bodies, and also a reconnection to like life with a capital L, to other people, right? To our community, to a higher power, to our passions, our interests, right? Our own sense of what's possible in this world. Like the you know, reconnection is the path of recovery. And again, you know, I talk a little bit, I mean, often, you know, as a therapist and as somebody who studied analytical Jungian psychology, I reference Carl Jung a lot, but, you know, he is quoted, and, you know, again, in this letter talking to Bill Wilson, he said that, you know, I'm going to butcher the quote, but he said, "It is of my opinion that man's thirst for alcohol is the equivalent for his thirst for union with God." Right. And so that's why this piece of connection and disconnection, I think, is really at the heart of this ism of addiction.
Yeah.
And so Carl Jung said, the helpful axiom there is spiritus contra spiritum, spirits versus spirits.
Yeah.
Right. Spirits isn't a drink. Spirits isn't a higher power.
Yeah.
We use our spiritual capacity to battle the thirst for alcohol, which isn't actually a thirst for alcohol. It's a cheap replica.
Yeah.
It makes us feel connected to ourselves. It makes us feel powerful.
Yeah.
Our sense of self can get locked in with these substances.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is what many people are chasing way more than the buzz. It's this sense of connection
100%.
that comes through the cheap illusion.
Drinking and drugs, they are a solution. They're a short-term solution. I heard this guy share in a meeting the other day, and he said how when he was drinking, all of the 9-step promises came true. That fear of financial failure was gone.
Right, when he was drinking,
all of the 9-step promises came true. But like immediately when that wore off, his life was in worse condition than it started.
All that fear comes back.
All that fear comes back even worse. The insecurity even more. And it's just, you leave even more, and most likely you're just going to even have more wreckage than where you were at before. And that's the thing, is it's a short-term solution with long-term problems. And as addicts and alcoholics, we are creatures of immediate gratification. We don't want to put in the work and even risk having that delayed gratification that may not ever come, because we know that drinking we know the effects, we know what's going to happen, and we're fine with that. Whereas diving into this program of recovery, we are so unsure. We're scared. We don't know what's going to happen. We have frustration, bewilderment, despair, the 4 horsemen that we talk about in the program, and we have no idea what's going to happen to us when we open the door and go down this road to recovery. And that's what having faith is all about. Is going down this spiritual path, not knowing what's going to happen, but seeing that others who have come before us have been okay and have even thrived, and having that faith that that's going to happen to us too.
Right.
If we put in the work.
You see it work for somebody else. You may not believe it could work for you, but you believe, or you witness that it works for them. And if that's the case, maybe there's a window of opportunity there.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And I think that so much of that and so much of this process, especially early on, is really understanding the limitations of your own thinking and your own perspective. And you don't need to look any further than the first step to recognize, right? My thinking is limited. I continuously go back to this behavior with the consequences that follow, even understanding or accepting the consequences, continuing to do it. I'm powerless. Clearly, my thinking is limited. Therefore, perhaps anything that's beyond my thinking is a power greater than myself.
Yeah. Of course, 100%. And we get stuck, especially, when we're drinking and using all the time. We get stuck in the same thought patterns, same self-destructive thought patterns, and nothing's ever going to, we talk about recovering from a hopeless state of mind and body, right? And when we're using these substances, engaging with these substances, we're hopeless. We have no hope. That's completely been taken away from us. And this, we have this, kind of cognitive dissonance when we're drinking and using. It's never going to get any better. Why stop? My life's only going to get worse. Life is terrible. There's nothing beyond. There's nothing out there for me. And it plays back into that victim mentality, right? That we're the victims in this situation, and we need to take that power back. That first step, taking that power, is admitting that we are powerless over drugs and alcohol, and our lives have become unmanageable, and we could take that power back to ourselves. Understand that we have no control over these substances, that we have an inability to control ourselves, control our lives when we're engaging with these substances. Then we could take the next steps into recovery. And I think there's just so much, there's so much beauty in that, and there's so much power in that.
Yeah. And so, so us here as Solstice Recovery, so we're based in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
We're 15 minutes from the beach.
Yeah.
We got a 7-bedroom crib.
Yeah.
Enough for 13 guys. We got a gym in the back.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, workout center. Oh,
we
yeah.
got a workout center. We got a squad here, know, and we have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Too, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's one thing that, you and I have clearly found so much fun in recovery and in sobriety. And, and like, that's such a key ingredient for these guys in these early phases. So we really try and emphasize communal activities. We call it our raw activities, right? So every week we're going to the beach, we're going on a hike, we're going to Topgolf, we're going to the movies, we're doing something, we're going bowling,
wherever, bowling, something, keep it fresh and exciting for the guys, have them look forward to something every week. And there's so much like that was such a huge part of my recovery, is learning that there are other people my age, especially in Los Angeles, the young community of people trying to get sober starts at like, I've seen people from like the ages of 15 to the ages of, 70 some odd, even more, getting sober, staying sober, and engaging in recovery. And the beautiful thing is, what drew me in really at first was the fellowship and seeing that like I could have fun in sobriety. And that is such a huge part of this community right here, is having a number of like-minded people that want to have fun, that can, showing them that we can have fun in sobriety outside of using these substances.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Right. I mean, life is meant to be lived, and I think that especially, the way some of these different substances or compounds like affect people, drinking is one thing, but a lot of the drugs, very much so, they take you out of your body and they disassociate you from your physical. Yeah. And I think that's also why a lot of people turn to substances, because we hold a lot of trauma in our body. Yeah. Yeah. Right. We have overwhelming states in our body, all this energy in our body, and we try and create distance from it because we don't have a relationship with the body. And so then you can exist. You spend so much time in the mind. Yeah. Right. And this is where I think a lot of, you see, symptoms of, psychosis, schizophrenia, et cetera, is like this real massive disconnect between the mind and the body. Mm-hmm. When we get sober, when we're in recovery, we're able to come back to the body and come back to our physical existence here in time and space. Mm-hmm.
The fourth dimension.
The fourth dimension, right? Because I believe that I chose this life. Yeah. I believe that I chose this body, that my soul has a contract here with this physical body and this physical existence. Oh, yeah. I'm not made to live in my head, to live in this disassociated sort of state of addiction. No, my soul wants to be here in my body, in the physical. Mm-hmm. And that's what we get an opportunity to do when we come back.
Yeah. 100%. And that's why like physical fitness plays such a huge part in my recovery, is because I'm engaging with my body, I'm healing my body and taking care of it and eating healthy. These are all things that are, for me, are very spiritual things. They enhance my spirit, whether it's eating healthy, exercise, fitness, whatever it is. These are things that enhance my spirit. They grow me spiritually, because when I'm engaging in these activities, I'm staying present, I'm staying here, and I'm in my body. I'm feeling my body. Yeah. And I'm feeling myself, and I'm not just trying to get outside of it, with substances or whatever. And has profoundly helped me through in healing my body, profoundly helped me through a lot of hard times in recovery. Because the thing is, we get sober and life doesn't stop. We still have to go through life, and life itself is very, very difficult. Brings stress. There's relationships that we have to navigate. All of this stuff that we have to navigate, that recovery teaches us how to navigate with a clean and sober mind and body, And so just because we get sober doesn't mean that life's going to get easier, Yeah. in a lot of aspects, life gets harder because we don't necessarily have that immediate solution of using drugs and alcohol.
I think a better way to put it in that is something that I heard in a meeting is that like nobody's life gets worse by getting sober, but their feelings might.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
Yeah. Temporary. Yeah.
Right? Because you remove the solution, right? And we're left with all of this emotionality. And again, you know, our baggage or trauma that exists in the body, all of that comes to the surface because we're no longer repressing it.
Yeah.
So your feelings might get worse for a period of time, right? Until you learn, you develop a spiritual toolkit, begin the process of reparation with self and others, you know, the neurochemical sort of palette in your brain starts to, you know, reconfigure itself a little bit. But nobody's life gets worse by getting sober.
No. And I didn't want anybody to mistake me for that. Your life doesn't get worse. It's just, the way that you can perceive it sometimes gets a little more difficult without the aid of, without numbing out, because you're not numbing out anymore. You're going to fully feel those feelings. You're going to fully think those thoughts, but we have to do that. We have to learn how to do that in a healthy way where we're not going to end up, killing ourselves over it, because this stuff is hard to deal with, and we have to deal with it in a way that elevates us. And that's hard to do. That takes an examination of like, okay, where can I be better in these situations? How could I have handled these situations a little better? How could I have made the people that I'm dealing with in these situations? A lot of times we talk about these things, we talk about character defects, and understanding about how your character defects can bring about a lot of stress and harm for you in the long run, and how we're addicted to these character defects the same way that we're addicted to drugs and alcohol, because we're using them to cope with life, and they're not a healthy coping mechanism. When I'm lying, when I'm being dishonest and I'm lying, being selfish and being lustful, I end up ultimately feel worse. And I feel like I'm not contributing to my community as best I can and society as best I can when I'm engaging in these defects. And they bring me, instead of elevating me, they're bringing me lower. They're bringing me lower, and they're pushing me away from God rather than closer to God, where I want to be, where I feel whole. I have to understand that, okay, this is how I was coping with life before sobriety, was I was lying, I was cheating, I was stealing, I was being dishonest, I was being lustful, I was being selfish, doing whatever I can to move myself forward and lower other people, and I didn't care, and I was apathetic to anybody else's feelings around me. So, and I have to kind of relearn how to go about life, understand that I can't use those character defects how I was using them before. I can't lie, I can't cheat, I can't steal, I can't be dishonest, I can't be selfish on all these situations, because that's going to push me back to where I was. And it's bringing me lower rather than elevating, and
bringing your energy down,
bringing my energy way down. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle in when they come into recovery, is that they don't understand that it is a whole entire change of your entire character and your entire being. And it's a psychic change, literally changing of your psyche and the way you think.
Thank God it doesn't happen all at once.
No, you don't have to go through this all at once, but it is of the educational variety. You learn that, like, okay, these things are not serving me like they used to before. They're bringing me down instead of putting me up. When we understand that, we could start to change. Then we start to be cognizant of them. Okay. We start to be like, oh wow, I really wasn't the most honest in that situation. How could I change that part of me and be honest? And then if I'm like not being honest, why aren't I being honest? Why aren't I being honest in that situation? Where is the fear there? Am I fearful to be honest because of this person's reaction? Like, why am I scared of that? And a lot of times it's rooted in, like, a lot of these fears are rooted in insecurities that we have, It just takes a deep dive. That's why I say sobriety is just the tip of the iceberg. We're trying to recover from a hopeless state of mind and body. We're trying to change the way we think about the world, and we're trying to be rocketed into a fourth dimension, which is here and now. And that's the way to do it. You need to reroute your whole entire brain and the way you think in order to do it. And it's a lot. It sounds like a lot. And that's why one of the big things about this program is you have to be willing to change. You have to be ready. Because there was so many times I got sober when I was 21 years old, right before my 22nd birthday. And my parents had tried to push me into recovery for years. They tried to put me in rehabs, hospitals, all this stuff to try and get me sober. But I wasn't going to get sober until I was ready to get sober. When I made the decision to get sober, my family had no part in it at all. Well, first they were already done with me, but they had no part in it at all.
It was self-directed.
It was self-directed, and it was
intrinsic motivation.
And there was so much power in that. There was so much power in the autonomy of knowing that it was my choice to get sober, and I'm on the path to better my life. I'm trudging the road of happy destiny, And it's no one's forcing me to go there. No one's forcing me to be there. It's my choice, And there's so much power in that.
So the goal of this podcast, as we're sort of wrapping up here, now obviously we're here to talk about recovery. We're here to talk about our experiences in recovery. We're really looking to provide as much like value as possible. I think that the education, like the psychoeducation around addiction and recovery is super important, because I remember, coming into recovery at 22, right before my 23rd birthday, I was so ignorant to what I was suffering from and ignorant to the solution and what was available as far as solutions available. So we're really trying to raise consciousness around this topic and around this field. We're going to talk a little bit about the recovery system and the healthcare model. Talk about, men's work, men's communities, how important men's communities are in recovery. Talking about our house a little bit, the way we do things around here. We're going to be bringing on some guests as well, maybe some of our residents in early recovery, some folks who have a lot of time. Thankfully, you and I have, a lot of relationships and a lot of experience, here on the West Side. We really know some titans in the recovery field that we may be bringing on at some point here. Yeah, looking to have a lot of fun, looking to, raise consciousness, around this topic, and hopefully be able to transmit and translate the beautiful experiences that we've had in recovery.
Yeah.
And package it in a way that's super accessible so that others, may have an opportunity to trudge the road of happy destiny,
of course,
as well. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Once again, my name is Brian Meyerhofer. I am a co-founder here at Solstice Recovery. I'm an associate marriage family therapist. I'm a men's coach as well. Yeah, looking forward to get into it. You want to give us a little outro?
Yeah, thanks for joining us on our first podcast ever. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, like Brian said, we're gonna be getting a chance to talk to a lot of smart people in the recovery world and dive deeper into a lot of these topics of recovery, the healthcare systems that are surrounding recovery, people in our house that are getting sober, how our house works, all that stuff. And we're really excited to get into all of it. Again, my name is Eric Bornstein. I'm the other co-founder of Solstice Recovery. I am an entrepreneur, mentor, and family member and son, most of all, and community member. So I'm glad you guys showed up, and I'm glad to bring a little slice of our community, you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll catch you all on the next one.
Have a good one.
Appreciate.